It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to jump on the board. We're going to go through Epson's first half of FY 2023. You know, I've concluded after looking at Epson's numbers that Ricoh and Konica Minolta should really get into the ink business and get rid of all their IT services businesses. Just shut all that down. Because apparently selling ink in our space is a lot more profitable and a lot more advantageous to an OEM than getting into IT services and selling services on things you don't make. Because Epson's numbers just completely crush both Konica Minolta and Ricoh. I mean, folks, it's just the reality. I mean, I'm really liking doing these comparisons because you're really getting to see those two legacy players that everybody thought were such fantastically run companies, and we're seeing by the numbers they're not so fantastically run. I mean, they got some big issues, in other words. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump in there and look at the numbers. Epson's top-line revenue for the whole entire company for the first half of FY 2023 is $4.2 billion. Operating profit, $186.5 million for the entire company. Ladies and gentlemen, here's something to blow your mind. Their operating profit is 4.4%, but it's down 52.8% from the same period last year. I mean, could you imagine if Konica Minolta had a 52% decline in operating profit? They'd just be further in the hole. But at the end of the day, this is fantastic. They're down 52.8% year over year. They still come in with $186.5 million operating profit on $4.2 billion in revenue, giving them a 4.4%. You know, let's look at that print business. That's what we all care about, right? Epson's print business top line revenue is $2.9 billion, operating profit of $248.6 million. Ladies and gentlemen, let's compare that to Konica Minolta. Okay, their printing business, $1.9 billion in the digital workplace. Professional print is $823.5 million. If you take out that IT services business, the DWDX, out of the Konica number, it's $1.7 billion for the first half in the digital workplace business unit. But think about it, they had $91 million in operating profit on pretty much the same revenue. Pretty much the same revenue. Why is that? Well, because Epson's run better? No, because Epson's not running around trying to do things they shouldn't do, like selling services on products they don't make. And the numbers are proving it. The office and home printing business within the Printing Solutions Group did $2 billion of the $2.9 billion, had an operating profit of $125.3 million. If you look at the commercial and industrial printing unit within the printing group, it did $870.3 million, and it had an operating profit of $122.6 million. That's 14.1%. I mean, well, you look at the industrial print over there at Konica Minolta, $113.6 million for the first half. They shouldn't even be in that business. They don't separate it out any operating profit. But at the end of the day, you can clearly see by the numbers that Epson's a much better run company financially. And you have to ask the question, is it because Konica Minolta's bogged down with all the nonsense of trying to sell services on products they don't make? I believe 100% yes. Let's compare them to Ricoh, same kind of scenario. You know, Ricoh's print business, if you take out the other and industrial section, it's $6.9 billion total. They did $6.9 billion total, and ladies and gentlemen, look at their operating profit. Ricoh Digital Services, $124.7 million, and remember, $2.5 billion of the $5.8 billion in revenue in that group for Ricoh is IT services. 2% operating profit. I mean, my gosh, folks, you look at the print business for Epson, $2.9 billion in total revenue, $248.6 million. They completely crush Ricoh. It's just proven the point. I don't think these folks should be jumping into IT services. I think they should be calling up Epson saying, how can we partner with you to sell ink in the marketplace? We want to get rid of all our IT services business. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to look on the consolidated financials. Their intangible assets are $175 million. They don't even show any goodwill. It's just intangible assets at $175 million. It's less than 2% of their assets. Their assets that are encumbered are 43.48%. They got a 56.52% equity to asset ratio. You know, $3.9 billion in liabilities, $9.2 billion in assets, $5.2 billion in equity. You know, I'd like to see them have less assets encumbered, but they're okay where they're at. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, their operating profit for the first half of the year can be down 52.8% from last year, and they're still looking pretty damn good. Like I said, Konica Minolta and Ricoh, maybe you should get rid of the IT services and start selling ink. The selling and administrative expenses for our friends over at Epson are 29% of their revenue. Their cost of sales is 68%. Their gross profit's 32%. Gross profit's low, but again, they're not selling services. They're selling products into the marketplace through distribution and dealer networks. So the numbers are strong. You know, they got a 45% gross profit at Brother. You got a 32% gross profit at Epson. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the selling and administrative expenses over there at Konica Minolta, that terrible 45%? Kyocera's at 24%, Canon's at 30%. So I'm telling you right now, I'm just convinced that both Konica Minolta and Ricoh need to call up Epson and say, let's work something out. We want to sell your ink. We're going to get rid of all of our IT services business. Ladies and gentlemen, I was looking at the visual communications and the manufacturing-related wearables business units in Epson, and I just want to ask my friends out there, who's selling their PC business stuff? Is anybody selling their PC stuff at Epson? I'd be curious on that. It's not a big business for Epson. It was $64.6 million for 6 months. I'm looking at the visual communications business. It was $734.7 million total. It had $97.3 million operating profit. But they have some interesting products that obviously dealers could sell, and I'm curious how many dealers are doing more than just the print devices with Epson. Reach out to me and let me know. I'd like to know how those products are working. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. Those OEMs that can focus on making stuff better than the competition, figuring out where to cut costs that the competition's not willing to cut, they can go into the marketplace and be disruptive during the marketplace's disruption. And that's exactly what the OEMs need to do. They should take a lesson from Epson, and everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all on Monday.